Welcome to Season 2 of the Changing Earth podcast with Sara F. Hathaway, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway.
Hi, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. Happy to have you back with me. This is Season 2, Episode 4 of the Changing Earth podcast. Last week in the Without Land story, Vince clashed with the landowner pretty bad. And now we are going to find out the repercussions of those actions. After we hear about the Without Land adventure, I have the honor of introducing you to an awesome author that I met. Her name is Gabriella Kovac, and she is the author of Georgina Holocaust Stories. These are stories of how her mother survived the Holocaust. So it's very interesting to hear the real-life survival stories, and I can't wait to introduce you to her. But first, let's go ahead and get into the Without Land adventure. Without Land by Sara F. Hathaway, Chapter 4. I am so sorry, you guys, Vince said as he backed away from them. Don't worry, baby. We were all hoping for the best, Erica replied reassuringly. She was followed by an "It's okay, Dad" from the kids. They sat down close to one another. After the stressful meeting, they needed the family comfort. They waited for the results of their actions. There had been similar meetings when Vince and Erica had first arrived with their family, and any outbursts had not been met with warm feelings from their previous handlers. Now, since their participation in the rebellion, they had to face Matthew himself. "Erica," Matthew said as he opened the waiting room door, "come with me. Alex, make sure the children get home," he ordered as Erica got up. "Erica and Vince will be here a while." Erica hugged her family. She rolled her eyes at Alex as she passed him. They went through another door into a brightly lit hallway with pictures on the walls and carpet on the floors. It definitely was not the sterile environment that a refugee was used to. Matthew was mumbling to himself as he opened one of the many wooden doors. Erica followed him through. "Doing all right for yourself, I see," Erica snapped out sarcastically when she noticed the cherry wood desk and the beautifully decorated office. "Sit," Matthew scolded. "Fine, but I didn't..." Erica was cut short. "I know, and I'm curious why," Matthew replied honestly. "I promised Vince," she said frankly. "Ah," he paused for a minute. "You guys have been here for what, 7 years now?" 9, Erica replied quietly. 9 years now. He paused again, looking out the angled window over the small city to the rows and rows of refugee shanties. "You look good," he said whimsically. "I guess so." His tactics confused Erica. "No, really, you look well-fed and so muscular." He was getting at something. "Well, if you would quit sending me down to the water line every time I walk down the street the wrong way, I might just get fat and happy." Erica was trying to be sarcastic again, in a futile attempt to disrupt his strategy. "No, it's not that. You've been training again, haven't you?" Matthew finally got to the point, his beady eyes fixed on her. "So what if I have?" Erica was perturbed. She felt she had to stay mentally and physically ready for anything. It wasn't exactly a secure world anymore. The earth had never completely settled after the Great Quake. The shaking was less intense and less frequent, but it haunted all of the Earth's inhabitants. It was clear to anyone who had any kind of relationship with nature that change was happening. Because after the incident you helped create, you were told not to. We told you we will provide everything for you. You just have to fulfill your role in the camp and keep your mouth shut. You are safe here, Matthew stated. "We provide a whole lot for ourselves and you know," Erica seethed. She had spent too many endless hours toiling in kitchens and slopping bucket after bucket of water on the water line to sit here and listen to him tell her how he provided her with all she needed. "You say we're so safe? Safe in your prison? I don't think so," Erica snapped back. "Erica, it is not a prison. It is a refugee safe zone," Matthew defended. He was proud of the job he was doing here. He believed he was saving people from the pain of a life out there without land to call their own. Plus, his reputation for being the most successful supplier of refugees was giving him prestige among his peers in the capital. He thought leading this crud hole of a camp might be his ticket to real power. Really then? Why can't we leave? Erica was pushing his buttons now. You know the answer. I ensured you knew the answer while you were sweating in that box. Remember? Matthew chuckled at her while he slid his glasses back up his nose. Just the mention of that box made Erica even more furious. She already had enough memories she wanted to wipe out without Matthew's help creating more. We have to have some kind of order if we're going to survive as a country, he continued. If we let everyone who was displaced run amok, it would be chaos. You'd have landowners defending their land and no place for all those displaced people to go. This system is working, Erica. Matthew was finished ranting. Oh, really? Slavery. Slavery is working just great. Just like it worked so well for our country before. Erica was in her element now. They had tried to melt her spirit away, but Erica was strong. She knew what was going on here in this camp was wrong, no matter how anyone tried to justify it. Matthew was now on the defense because he knew just as well as she did that there was no morally correct way to accept this new system without at least a few reservations. It is not slavery. Jesus, Erica! Matthew was furious at her rebuttal. Erica cringed as she heard him take the Lord's name in vain. Her mother would have smacked her across the face for that. With the oil shortages, the landowners need hands and people need homes. It's a win-win situation. The landowners adopt refugees. Together they grow food. A certain portion of the harvest goes to feed the refugees in camps. It works, Matthew finished as if it was all such a black and white process. For who? Certainly not for me. If we're not slaves, then why can't my children have children? Erica spat these words hatefully at him. You fix all the refugees at 13. Where is the freedom there? Are landowners even limited to the amount of children they can have? No. Her face was fiery red with anger, and the veins on her hands bulged as she gripped the chair he had made her sit in. This had been the reason she had agreed to raise up in arms against her captives. This had been the reason for her family's imprisonment, and it was not something she was going to just forget. She had another son to think of, a son who hadn't yet reached the age of 13. That's just how it is. Accept it, Matthew spat back, completely discouraged by her inability to conform, even after all the years that had gone by and the consequences he had rendered against her and her family. No, Erica retorted defiantly. Look, we have too many people and the land is gone, Erica. You have to understand. You should have seen Texas after the quakes. All the refinery fires and chemicals spilling everywhere. He was speaking now as if to himself, and his eyes glossed over like he was looking into some nightmare he had lived 9 years ago. Thousands died in the streets. Millions were left without homes. And we had to do something. There were just too many. And the people who were lucky enough to survive with their land had to put it to use for the good of all the survivors. Matthew finished with a deep, painful look in his eyes. FEMA has always had a fallback plan. You must have known that. You forget, Matthew, I made it out of California. I left that place even though your awesome government shut the borders and didn't tell anyone what was going on. You instituted radio silence and sentenced all those people to death. When I barely escaped with my life, I thought I was entering a brave new world of freedom, but I walked right into the arms of soldiers I thought were there to protect me. We were rounded up at gunpoint like cattle. They took my horses, and God knows what happened to my dog. They told us we were going to live at this happy camp, where we would be cared for until the country was stabilized. Erica's eyes were filled with tears. Well, we're still here, and your system sucks, and this place sucks. Erica was done with this conversation. Nothing was going to come from it. She felt the pain Matthew had lived. She knew his excuses for defending the system, but in her mind, there was no excuse. There was no excuse for the way their family had been treated for the sin of surviving. There was no excuse for what they were doing to all these people, and there was definitely no excuse for what they were doing to these children. So, Why don't you just dole out the punishment for our family being so disobedient to the mighty landlord, and let's be done with this? She glared spitefully at him, ready to face anything he could dish out. Matthew sat down in his chair, shaking his head back and forth in disgust. He pondered this fireball in front of him. He couldn't understand why she just couldn't accept this new system. So many others had. You know, he said softly, I had nothing to do with California. But you knew, didn't you? You had a big government job then as well. You may not have been in charge of the decisions, but you knew and you did nothing. Erica was fiercely bitter over this topic. Look, I need to talk with your husband. He will probably be on the waterline for a while instead of in his precious gardens. But you guys need to conform. His eyes gleamed directly at her. I can't have you training and teaching your martial arts and self-defense techniques to refugees. That will just create unrest. We need order, and I need my refugees ready to accept any work they can get. By God, Erica, if I find out you're doing it again, you will pray you were in that hot box in the warehouse, Matthew finished. Your refugees? Really? Erica was so annoyed. Erica, I'm fucking serious. Matthew looked away in complete frustration. All right, whatever, Erica replied, unwilling to find out just how serious he was. Well, there's that fire from Erica. Looks like she still hasn't been quenched of this fire yet, even though they're trying very intensely to do so. So this survival spirit can be the key to survival. And here to talk about her mother's survival spirit is Gabriela Kovac. Gabriela Kovac was born in Hungary just after the Second World War had drawn to a close. She lived through the Hungarian uprising against the communists in 1956, and she remembers vividly Russian tanks under her bedroom window. Through the genius of her mother, Georgina, her family managed to leave the communist bloc and come to Australia in 1957. She is an experienced public speaker, fashion designer, and cook. Throughout her life, she has been inspired by her mother's amazing tenacity on outsmarting the Nazis and communists and winning. Her zest for life motivated her to write Georgina Holocaust stories. So let's go ahead and welcome Gabriela to the show. Thanks very much for being here with me today, Gabriela.
Sarah, I cannot tell you how much of a pleasure it is to talk to you.
Well, we're very excited to hear your story. Today in my story, we're hearing about what Erica's doing in this refugee camp and how the new system has been laid out for the American citizens. So these decisions that are often made by a majority and forced upon a minority are not a fictional concept. And Erica and her family find themselves victims of this system. So in your story, you and your family found yourselves in real-world victims of a similar situation. So I'm super excited to hear about the stories in your book. So can you please share with us the story of your mother, Georgina, and her journey to survive as a Jew in World War II?
Okay, Sarah. Well, I think the story begins very much in the beginning of the book. I think her father, my grandfather, was an amazing person. He must have, that's what I think. I think he must have foreseen what would happen. And he groomed young Georgina, my mother, into being an exceptional person. And that's basically how the book starts. He said that he made her believe, and it wasn't even a belief, it was a total knowingness that she was in a bubble and nothing would harm her. And from that point, from that outlook onward, she led her life. When the Nazis came to power and they said that, all Jews have to wear a yellow star, she just thought about it and thought, okay, so they're wearing a yellow star and they're being shipped off. and they're not being treated very nicely, what's my options? My option is to go under the wire. How do you do that? Well, get a false passport and tint your hair blonde and move. And that's what she did. She totally changed her personality. And if you look in the book, there's a picture of her on her wedding day, and there's a picture of her false passport, and it doesn't look like the same person. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And she literally went through being very careful and hiding her mother through the whole Second World War and the Holocaust with a different identity.
So she actually hid her mother. Wasn't her mother stout against not going underground to wear the star and be proud of her Jewish heritage?
Yes, she was proud of being a Jew. She put the star on, and then she was herded into a ghetto, basically. So that's when her brother went into the ghetto. That's a completely different story. That is just unbelievable. And you can see it. He actually had a uniform and a gun. So he went into the ghetto posing as an officer, grabbed hold of her with a gun and got her out. And then they just hit her in the flat.
Wow.
Where they both had false passports.
That takes some major cojones. We'll put it that way.
Oh, my God.
Right?
That man, that man had major cojones. It's interesting that he had it all during the war, and his guts and his coolness never faded. But afterwards, it broke him. He never sort of was the same personality as during the war. While Mum was very good Jewess and became a tower of strength afterwards, and then she even fought the Russians and communism and made a very, very comfortable lifestyle for us.
So it had a big emotional toll on your mom's brother that have been that to go through that experience.
Yeah. It's incredible. He was a wonderful man, and I met him, and he was as much of a father to me as my father. He was a wonderful man, and then when he came to Australia, he remarried and had two lovely, lovely boys that were very close as my cousins.
So do you think that your mom made it through better because your dad or your grandfather kind of formed her more for that role to be able to make it through everything, to be able to, survive anything and kind of be in your bubble and be who you are no matter what?
Exactly. I think that I cannot see any other explanation to her. The way she lived her life, she had this incredible belief in herself, incredible power within herself that she will survive, and no matter what, she will survive. And it wasn't just survive, but survive and do well. Right.
Yeah, survive and thrive, which is exactly what we're about on this podcast. So I find it really fascinating because that inner strength and that attitude of I will make it, I'm going to do fine, and what you self-talk yourself is so important no matter what kind of situation we're in. I really think a lot of our depression problems and things like that can be solved just by better self-talk. So if you tell yourself negative things all the way along the line, then of course you're going to think negatively and have a negative outlook. But if you can be strong and confident and fill yourself with this positive energy, we can make it through kind of any situation and be able to carry on.
That's exactly right. I know it sounds easy to say and hard to do, but it isn't really. It really isn't. All we need to do is just look inside ourselves and find one sparkle that we think we're good at. Just one little sparkle, and nourish that.
Absolutely. I like that.
Thank you.
It sounds to me like your mom also instilled the same attitude in yourself because, even just on the base level, being an author is a very challenging thing. We open ourselves up to the scrutiny of the whole world, and it's tough sometimes to just carry on, and then we have to deal with all the business background things that are all very complicated just to get our work out there, besides the fact that you open yourself up to the world for the scrutiny of it.
Exactly. You're quite right. Yep. She did. I think that I was very privileged to know, although she was very hard to live with, because she who does no wrong is not an easy personality to get on with. But some of her ideas were absolutely, way above her time, way above some of the stuff. Like, we had this huge private library, and she'd just say to me and anybody else who wanted to stop me, just go in there and read what you like. If you don't understand it, ask me. And if you don't ask me, it's your problem because you won't know.
Excellent. My son would probably say the same thing about me, I'm afraid to say. I have to admit that. So in your bio that you provided me, you remember seeing the Russian tanks outside of your window.
Oh, yes. Every time we see, that, I don't know if you ever seen that documentary where the Russian tanks are. Well, I was on top watching it. So when I see that documentary, even today, I still have shivers in my spine.
That's an incredible experience to have witnessed. Really scary. And, for us growing up in America today, unless we're part of the armed forces or something like that, we really have no idea what that kind of experience is like, because we've been pretty sheltered over here. So can you share some of the feelings, just the raw emotions that you have in that kind of experience?
Oh, it's surreal. That's the only thing you can say, because don't forget I was fairly young as well. And I just thought it was totally surreal. Where we lived was in a very exclusive part of Budapest. Okay. And not very far from us was the film studios. And we lived in a one-story villa on the top. And sometimes we used to see the elephant go past our place for the filming. Right. And, different things, because that's how close we lived to the film studio. And then instead of seeing these strange and wonderful things, all of a sudden you see tanks, and then the next door lady runs in and says, "Get away from the window, they just shut my whole place up." Her place was all gunshots on the ceiling.
Oh my gosh.
And it was scary.
So at first you're almost like, are the tanks there for the movies? And then your neighbor runs in and she's been all blown up. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and also it was my birthday, so because they always made a big deal about my birthday, I thought they were shooting because it was my birthday. I really did.
You're like, it's a celebration. It's my birthday. Woo-hoo. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the innocence of children, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was just so, but then it became very, very scary. And mainly, like, my mother never ever lost it. She was always so calm through everything and anything that ever happened to her. She was just so calm and so much in control. And then one night she actually lost it. And she grabbed me and my brother and wanted to get out of the flat and started screaming, "I will not stay in a place where they kill each other every 10 years. I will not stay here." Mm-hmm. And that was frightening. For a young child to see somebody who was in such a high pedestal, that she was just always well-groomed, beautiful, totally in control. There's another story which I usually tell people because she was in the black market. I don't consider it the black market. It's, if you're an artist and you want to produce your things and people want to buy it, you sell it. Right. In Russia, that's illegal. I mean, in communism, that's illegal, and you're in a black market because you want to sell your product. Right. Anyway, so the secret police came to arrest her and to question her. And she was in total control, told them to wait and sit until she got ready. They took her and she stayed in the most infamous jail in Hungary for 10 days and walked out with not a hair on her head touched.
Huh.
That's what I mean calm.
Yeah.
She was calm.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was a witness to that, and that, to me, that's one of the main things that I was petrified.
Right, as a child, and your mom gets taken away for this. And you're
Not
freaking out.
That, but it wasn't that she was taken away. Before she came into the room, they actually started questioning me. Can you imagine being questioned by a secret police when you're 4 years old?
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness.
And, yeah, and then neither my father nor my grandmother said a word. And here I am sitting on this guy's lap, and he's questioning me, and I'm thinking, what is going on? And she literally waltzed into the room, looked at the man and said, you put that child down.
Oh.
And he looked at her, and he did.
Poise.
And I thought, wow.
Yes. How awesome is that, too? Because a lot of times, I don't know, maybe women aren't given the same, heroic status sometimes as men, of powerful to be able to get things done. And for her to be this confident woman who knows who she is, to be able to take charge of a situation and hold her poise together, that is a fantastic, fantastic quality. I admire.
It was. I will never forget that. And then for that same woman to lose it and say, we got to get out of here, that shakes you. That shakes your stability as a child.
Right, when you're used to seeing her just so in charge, so confident, able to take on the world, and she finally has that moment where she cracks. And I guess we would all need that. You would all need that, moment of just, give up, because, this is so crazy and the world just keeps pushing on me and pushing at me.
Yeah. And that's what she said. That's it. I'm getting out of here. And then the only person that could control her was my uncle. And he said, yes, Georgina, we are getting out of here, but not now.
That is.
And as soon as he said that, she calmed down.
But not now, right? Yeah, we're getting there. My question to you is, what societal red flags can we take away from your mother's story? Like, if we were going to teach society about some precursors that we could look out for, what would you say would be some of those red flags that happened along the way for your dad or your grandfather to know it was coming? Do you have any insight into how he knew that?
Not with my grandfather. I don't know how he had this second thought of. Don't know, maybe because he was involved with the crash in the U.S. with the stock market crash. Maybe that would have instigated it. I'm not really sure. But the main thing that I think that is the most important thing is whatever is true for you is true. Doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what the law says. It doesn't matter what the authority says. If it's not true for you, it isn't true. And you need to look at that and really need to abide by that. I'm not being a revolutionary, and I don't think, murder or anything like that. But if it's not true for you, it's not true. It's as simple as that. And don't always live within your own integrity. I think it's the most important thing that we can all do. Mm-hmm. And then if it doesn't match the circumstances, figure out a way of how to.
But if it doesn't match your circumstances, then figure out a way to make it reality.
Exactly.
I love that.
Make it a reality.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I kind of live and breathe in the survival community, and I'm a big believer in staying together, learning about our natural environment so that we can kind of survive everything. And we speak a lot to, what we need to do to prepare as individuals. So if we were to experience this kind of societal breakdown today, what are some things we can do on a personal level within ourselves to prepare ourselves to be as strong as your mom was?
I still think it's not the wall that's outside. It's the wall that we build inside ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an interesting, you just made me think of something very interesting, because I have done some Qigong, and my Qigong teacher was telling me that there was this ancient Chinese who was locked up in a jail. So what he did was develop this exercise in a cell that was a tiny little cell, and that he taught to us. And when he came out, he wasn't in a bad way, because he was exercising in a little tiny cell.
Oh. So we have to stay active, not only physically, but within our own hearts.
That's right. And I think that the biggest problem is when you believe what happens outside. When they say that you are, you believe that you are. No, you're not. Mm-hmm. You're yourself. And that's the most important thing to live with and be with.
I love it. I'm so glad that I invited you on the show, because, you know, I've been told about my character, Erica, that women can't do that. Women aren't that strong. Women, you know, wouldn't be that heroic person that you're making her out to be. And I strongly disbelieve that.
Of course we are.
You know,
we're stronger than most people. Of course we are.
Exactly.
We can do anything we want. We can do as much as a man does. If we push to it, we'll do it. And that's all there is to it. So, do you know how many times I've been told that it's not true that when the Hungarian borders were closed, there was no way anyone could get out? She went to the Hungarian embassy and said, how much?
Uh-huh.
And bought 12 passports.
And
because,
went through it.
She had the means, but she had also the guts to say, how much?
Yeah.
And came out as legal immigrants. Because you can be done. Regardless of saying the borders are closed, and regardless of anybody, I've been to a couple of meetings where people say, no, it can't be true because we're victims and you can't just do that to a government. Of course you can.
Of course. Everything that society wants to press on you as a social norm can always be thought around, as long as you have the courage and the guts to do it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because what is society but what we make it every day?
Yeah, exactly.
Such a fantastic story. Really is. I'm so interested. I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy Georgina Holocaust Survival Stories, because your mom is definitely a character that I would love to emulate with, like you say, the power, the confidence, the poise, and to not be restrained by those social stigmatisms that we apply nowadays to go, no, I can make this happen. I can get my family safe. I can get them to freedom, and I can make my own life. Very cool stuff.
It's very cool. And, you know, I've got a quote on my wall from Goethe, which says the same thing. If you believe in yourself, Providence will step in, and all manner of things will come your way. And it's a proof in real life. And it's a proof with me I intended to write this book. No, my English wasn't good enough. No, I can't type. Yes, I did get a book. And yes, it is a bestseller on Amazon.
Well, I can see why, because it's a fantastic story, and I'm so happy you shared it with us today. And we have some great takeaways from your mom's story and from your story personally. I mean, as authors, you know, this is the kind of stories that keep us driving for our own dreams and our own goals, and keep our survival spirits active inside of us. So I very much appreciate you sharing your story with us today.
Oh, I am so pleased that you asked me, Sarah, and I'm so pleased to find a like-minded soul. It is just so wonderful.
Well, me as well. That's why I was like, okay, you have got to come on my show because my listeners would be so excited to, get a hold of your story and learn about this incredible story that happened in real life and what we can take away from it, because we're living in some uncertain times right now and everybody kind of thinks that they need to just fall in and go with the flow. And, your mom's story is evidence that we make our own way and you can do that every day.
You can. It's just amazing. And as Goethe 200 years ago said exactly the same, just try it. Just try it. Ask the audience, anybody who's listening, give it a go. And it's magic. That's real magic. That's the magic of life.
Well, I'm blown away, honestly. I can't wait to get a hold of this book and read it because it's been fascinating to talk with you about it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much for being here, Gabriella. It was amazing to hear your real life survival story and how we can all learn from those lessons and, keep ourselves with a high spirit no matter what kind of situation we're facing, because that's the one thing that nobody can take away from you ever. With that said, let's go ahead and get into review time. It's time for review time. Got an opinion? I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and give me your 2 cents on Day After Disaster or the Changing Earth podcast. Head on over to Amazon or iTunes to give me your 2 cents. So I have my last 2 reviews for you today on Without Land. So we're going to be getting into survival tips before you know it. But my first review that I have on Without Land is from Nora A. And she says, after reading her first book, which was good, I was stunned after reading this book. It was frighteningly real. There were things in here I had never thought of. I don't want to do any spoilers. It was amazing. This author wrote about what might very well happen without going into right or left-wing politics. This story sticks with you. It almost haunts you, and you tend to reevaluate all viewpoints you have. I am wondering if there will be another book. Exposing, and I can't say without giving away a spoiler. Well, you're very right. There's a next book coming, and there will be no time gap between book 2 and book 3. It rolls right into book 3. And I appreciate the fact that you noticed I didn't want to lean any way politically because I don't really think that's the point. I wanted to be able to explain how humans are adapting to a changing Earth. So, people are making decisions, not because they necessarily want to hurt other people, but because they're concerned about survival. So that's where I wanted to come from on the basis of the book. So, it is what it is, and we're just dealing with it now. So thank you very much, Nora, for your review. I'm really glad you enjoyed the book. So my last review that I have for you is from Goodreads, and it's from Ed Hillenbrand. And he gave it a 3-star rating, which is not bad. And he says a reasonable second book for a young author. I had a few twitches about the plot, not giving anything away. There were 9 years after the first book, and how many people survived? Outside of those 2 issues, which are easy to get over, the story flows logically and fast. I hope in book 3, Miss Hathaway focuses much more on character development. There are 2 teen lives to explore that have been shaped by a major life-altering event. How did watching her mother raped and killed impact Star? What about the boys? Why is one so artistic? Do tell. Well, Ed, it sounds like you are eager for book 3 because, I've explained in the past, this book 2 was supposed to be a lot longer, but then as I started writing the story, I like to keep my books to about 300 pages, and to cut it down wouldn't have done it justice, so that's why I made it its own story. So that is all coming down the pipeline, and that Star and Dexter are going to step up into some more major roles, and Daniel, takes a pivotal role as well, because it's all about the next generation, right? So thank you for giving my story the review. Thanks for giving me your feedback. I always appreciate hearing it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I want to remind all my listeners out there, keep your spirits up. No matter what's happening in our world, you control your own mind. So empower yourself, start prepping, start learning about survival, start putting your toolbox together in your head so you know what to do. And remember, until next time, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sara for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, and Battle for the South at www.author.sarafhathaway.com. If you love Sara's books and this podcast, please head over to Amazon or iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.